There's a direct quote that I find fascinating. You know, all the kerfuffle about the titles for Princess Lilibet and Prince Archie. Well, this is relevant to that. And it's a direct quote from the Finding Freedom book. When they chose not to give their son a royal title, both wanted to ensure, and this is a direct quote, their son chose his own destiny. So isn't that interesting? That is a direct quote from the book Finding Freedom. I'm not saying it's a direct quote from Harry and Meghan, but it's a direct quote from that book. And isn't it interesting that that was their stance at the time about titles? It must be very hard to keep up what their opinions are because they've changed quite a bit. Now, the next part where there was a disparity between the books was the whole first dates thing. Now, just briefly, Harry's book says that they met at Soho House for the first date for about an hour and a half, and it was lovely. And then Meghan had to go off to another engagement, supposedly, and then she FaceTimed Harry later in the night, and he was at a mate's house. In Finding Freedom, the first date wasn't that. That was more the second date in Finding Freedom. In the first date in Finding Freedom, it is said that they met in a small gathering of people in a private room for drinks, and that they did spend a lot of time together, but that's the first date. That's how the first blind date was set up, so it wouldn't be embarrassing if they didn't get on. So there was like a gathering of other friends. So I don't know which one's the real one. And then in Harry's book, the second date before Meghan has to fly back to film for Suits, Harry says that she went to Wimbledon to cheer on Serena Williams, and then they met at Soho House for their first proper dinner together, and that he gave her Independence Day cupcakes because it was the 4th of July. Now, in the Finding Freedom version, Meghan does go to the tennis, but she flies out after the tennis, and that the actual dinner date was on the 3rd of July. And guess where they say that dinner date was? Finding Freedom says that Meghan was driven into the grounds of Kensington Palace and taken to Nottingham Cottage on July the 3rd. And then she went to the tennis on July the 4th and flew out. And I'm thinking that the journalists that wrote Finding Freedom probably wouldn't have put that in. I think they put in comings and goings from Kensington Palace a lot in this, but not a lot, that's an incorrect statement. A few times I've noticed that they put in comings and goings from Kensington Palace. So I'm figuring they have some way of knowing who's coming in and who's going out and who's in the car, because I don't think they would risk putting that in the book. But Harry's version is a lot more chaste and gentlemanly, isn't it?